No one is disordered. No one has OCD. No one has MPD. No one has PTSD. There are no Ds. No one's disordered. No one has a disease. I could go on and on, right? Everything that happens with us and internally and then expresses externally is because of unresolved childhood trauma.
Well, David, thanks for joining me today. We had some fun technical stuff getting this all figured out. But for people that don't know, I think you and I probably first met, gosh, over 2 years ago, probably now.
Probably, yeah.
We were both part of the Arena Mastermind group, and then we just kind of built a relationship. And every couple months or so, we're just checking in and seeing how each other's doing and what we're doing in different parts of the world and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for doing this. This is going to be fun. So for people that don't know you, don't know your background, love to get like high level view of who you are, so people have some context, and we'll dive into the different things. So who's David Lee?
Well, let's see. Should I start with a dad joke?
Sure, yeah.
My grown kids would appreciate that. Yeah. So, well, I'll just start there, Jason. I help men and women begin to heal childhood trauma to release them into the relationship of their dreams, so we're going to really hit very softly there at the top. Right? In other words, I listen to people's trauma all day long. And, but I am a trauma informed coach who has developed a proprietary, very unique healing modality approach philosophy to help people first begin to understand why in the world their relationship is crumbling, why they want more, why they don't understand why they've failed or haven't progressed in the relationship, and wondering what in the world, what are the unwanted patterns that they've continued to repeat. Mm-hmm. And the reality is it all stems from their unresolved childhood trauma, each of them. So each of the spouses carry unresolved. In fact, all 8 billion of us, Jason, on the planet carry unresolved childhood trauma. Newsflash. Yeah. But we all do. And trauma is simply identified as a dysregulation, a confusion of an emotional standing, emotional regulation when we were children. And we were simply confused. And we knew as children, as little boys and little girls, how we wanted to be taken care of and cherished and honored and parented and led and coached. And it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Well, because our parents carry unresolved childhood trauma wounding that they then are still resonating, and it's still stewing inside of their nervous system, and they pass it on. And that's where we have generational trauma. So we are firm believers that we can honestly bring so much hope and peace and happiness to individuals first. As we say, we like to heal marriages one individual at a time, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And welcome to Daring Deeply. That's the name of my coaching practice. But really, you don't have a healthy relationship until you have two healthy individuals. And so I work exclusively with individual spouses. So sometimes I work with them as a couple, but I work with them independently and individually. And sometimes I work with just one spouse, because healing is exclusively an individual journey. And that's something that's relatively new. Far too often people think I need to save, fix, mend, or help my marriage. And that's simply untrue. That's a myth. You don't save a marriage. You can only heal yourself. And so over the past 5 years, when I launched Daring Deeply in the middle of a global pandemic on June 2nd, 2020, a lot of people looked at me and thought, what are you doing? What's going on? There's so much uncertainty in the world. I said, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think I'll launch this coaching practice right in the middle of a global pandemic. And so I did, and we've been very honored and blessed to grow a coaching practice to international levels. We're so thrilled to be able to help so many men and women begin to heal truly at the root cause. And that's what makes our coaching practice so special.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. I mean, obviously there's so many layers deep that we could go, but the first one that I always want to, that I think first comes to me is, obviously this came from yourself first, right? You probably had to go through stuff for yourself first in order to have a desire, a revelation, or whatever to do what you do today. And in terms of the timing question, I don't want to go there, but I was like, oh yeah, 2020, all of a sudden everybody had to come home and be with each other all the time. And I guess if you didn't have tools to do that well, or it's easy to just kind of go your separate ways in marriages and life, that was probably a good time, as far as timing is concerned. But yeah, I guess going to the first question, where did this all come from? Obviously, you probably did some work yourself in order to jump in and do this, but yeah.
Yeah, the truth is the work continues. So
Yeah.
as I often tell clients, I continue to do my work. My wife is my partner in the business, and we have a team as well. But we are continually doing work. So I have my own world-class healing professionals with I invest in
Yeah.
for me to continue this work. Because as you know, you can't pour from an empty cup. What do they tell
Right.
you on an airplane, Jason? You put the
Very,
mask on
very true.
yourself first. Yeah,
Very true.
exactly. So if I'm not doing the work, then right, I'm not advancing. I'm not continuing to progress. In fact, the vow that I made to my wife on our wedding day was I commit to my ongoing daily growing, healing, and transforming so that then I can support you who has committed the same.
Nice. Yeah.
Not till death do us part, not in
Yeah.
sickness and health. I committed to my own healing because my own healing then creates a platform where I can be the very best husband, the very best father, and the very best human on the planet. And so, yes, I was certainly doing work before I started the coaching practice, but I really landed in personal development about 8 years ago, nine
Oh,
years
okay.
ago, where I thought, huh, yeah, I probably need to start looking in the mirror and stop looking out the window and stop blaming everybody else for my issues.
Yeah.
I had my healthy doses of childhood trauma. When I was a kid, I lost my mother when I was just 2 weeks old. I never knew her.
Hmm.
She died tragically 2 weeks after my birth. And then grew up with a father who was incredibly confused, incredibly angry, and an incredible man.
Yeah.
And it really took me, 40 years or so to really understand that. So my dad's been gone about 7 years now, and I have a better relationship with him now than I ever did when he was alive
Hmm.
because of the work that I'm doing. And so, which is really, really pronounced. We can build a healthy relationship with people who are no longer with us. We can build a healthy relationship through this healing approach who we don't ever need to talk to, which is
Wow.
really interesting. So,
Yeah.
because healing is individual, healing is internal, it has nothing to do with the other person. That's why
Right.
I work exclusively with individuals because it has nothing to do with your spouse. Even though we walk around and go, oh, well, if my spouse would just blank, then things would be better.
Yeah.
Actually, our specific healing approach and modality cuts through all that. And so I've come to understand that in my own healing work over the years, and now we certainly leverage that in our healing practice. So yes, navigated plenty of childhood trauma and had no idea that it was going to impact me moving into relationships, moving into adulthood, and it dramatically did. So I continue to make choices
Yeah.
in my adulthood that were completely reflective of unhealed trauma from childhood. And so over time, in fact, when I launched the coaching practice, it didn't have these colors. It wasn't trauma. It wasn't polarity. It wasn't
Hmm.
masculine and feminine energy. It was simply a basic life coaching practice. And over several years, through work with incredible mentors, incredible coaches, some of which is Erwin McManus,
Yeah.
the gentleman that we certainly met through. But over time, I began to realize, wow, there is an empty space still, and trauma is becoming more and more normal for
Yeah.
people to talk about, but it's still very, very, very much out there. And what I noticed is there's a gap. There's a significant gap of when individuals who really want to thrive and flourish in their marriage relationship are coming up short. They're finding blockages. They're hitting walls. They're not understanding. They're operating using band-aids, which far too many people are using.
Yeah.
One of which is couples counseling. Marriage
Let's
therapy
just
is
go
large.
there. Yeah.
That's right, which is largely ineffective, believe it or not, because you're trying to work on the relationship. And the truth is, Jason, there's no such thing as working on a relationship. You can only work on yourself.
Hmm.
So, and that is really the true pathway to healing. And so I discovered that over time. And over the last several years, we've developed this specific healing approach and modality. Really, it's become a philosophy to help people really hone in on where in the world these triggers come from in their adult life and connect them directly to a childhood.
Yeah. Hmm. Wow. That's fascinating. I so the question that went to my brain when you were talking about that, because when you and I have talked, like me and my wife both we went through some, some individual counseling and then yes,
Mhm.
couples counseling.
Yep.
But before that, when I was a pastor, I saw so many times where a couple would come to a pastor for counseling, and God bless, most pastors are not equipped for that. And that sounds almost sacrilegious, if if you come from the church world. However, I found it was very true. But the thing that I thought was probably most interesting is just like you said, it seems like there was a lot of times that a couple would come, one of them wanted to work on the relationship or themselves, and the other had no desire intention. When you take on a client
Hmm.
So you're not necessarily taking on the couple as a client. You're saying, hey,
Hmm.
if you want to get better, I'll help you. If they don't
Sure.
want to get better, that's their deal. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly correct. Yep.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and more, it's becoming more and more prevalent, which is fantastic because ideally I want to be working with each spouse
Sure. Yeah.
simultaneously,
Yeah.
independently, but simultaneously. But we have seen extraordinary healing results with individuals who I'm working with them, but not their spouse.
Hmm.
Is it challenging? Of course it is. But again, it's an individual journey. So it can be hard
Yeah.
to be sharing a bed and a house and conversations and bills
Yeah.
with someone who is not gaining the insight and education, the language
Yeah.
that we certainly are promoting and helping them through. Of course it is. I'm not going
Yeah.
to lie to it and say, oh, yeah, it's all hunky dory.
No. No.
And what's interesting is this is what I say is be careful what you wish for because people will think oftentimes they'll come into this healing approach and think if I'm getting better somehow it's going to miraculously inspire my spouse to get better or
Mhm.
it's going to rub off on them. It's going to be mitosis or whatever that is, right? When you assume that if you touch somebody who you're clean and that somehow they're going to get clean, well, it's not true. You certainly can inspire them with your healing approach and what you're doing, how you're
Yeah.
taking care of yourself. But yes, oftentimes it feels, and clients say this every single time, it can feel like you're getting further from your spouse when
Mm.
you begin to heal.
Yeah.
And that's quite frankly, Jason, that's why most people don't engage in their own healing because
Yeah.
they know, uh-oh, if I start to see and feel and begin to heal and
Yeah.
begin to unmask all of what I know is true from my childhood, uh-oh, that may drive us further apart.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they,
Yeah.
yeah, because they're relying on this idea that you save a marriage at all cost. And that is what's keeping people imprisoned. It's
Interesting.
absolutely keeping people trapped. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it really, really rubs up against this idea that till death do us part. And it really
Yeah.
does. And I get it. I'm a former pastor as well, right? It's
Yeah.
one of the things that we correct. And I understand what religion and faith and Christianity and everything else out there tells us. But the reality is there is no God from my perspective. There's no God that says, I want you to suffer.
Sure.
I want you to be in a relationship that you're not happy in, right? Now, there's the other side that says, oh, people give up too soon, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, no, God, from my perspective, God wants us to be in healthy relationship because he has a healthy relationship with us.
Right.
So he wants
Yeah.
us to certainly be reflective of that. And in essence, that's what we're helping people do is
Yeah.
to heal their wounds that then generate a light around them, which
Yeah.
makes sense. And boy, how close is that to God?
Yeah. No, it's because I remember when we first talked and you're explaining this modality to me, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's it's fascinating because again, when I think of a lot of times people go into counseling and they'd come to a
Mhm.
pastor and it was usually and I'd love for you to speak to this a little bit. It was usually the wife dragging the husband and being
Yep.
fix him. Like that was kind of
You bet.
the posture and everything that came with that. But
Hmm.
realizing so the idea of the choice, I know we talked about this briefly before, but
Hmm.
when Ray and I first started thinking of like what do we want to call this thing? We were like, we want to call this the choice because the idea of, life is just a series of choices, right? And the
Yep.
choices we make ultimately make us who we are. And that you either have to have intentional action that puts you on a trajectory that's moving you forward towards
Hmm.
some place. Or if you don't have intentional action, if you're not intentionally putting something, moving yourself uphill, you will have accidental outcomes. And I think what happens is people fall further down that slide, the path of terribleness in this accidental outcome world, and then they realize they're not where they want to be, right? And then they get upset at that, and so they want to blame other people. My wife and I were just having this conversation about a mutual friend of ours, and just realizing she's just mad. She just wants to blame everybody else for the things that are going on in her life instead of having to take some ownership responsibility for themselves. So in that, like how much I guess do you see that when people are coming to you and say, I'm here because I really want you to fix this other person. I want you to give me the weapons to go combat instead of
Yeah.
realizing I need to deal with myself.
Yeah. Multiple messages a day, Jason.
Okay.
And 99.9% of them are from who, do you believe?
I would imagine the wives.
It
Yeah.
is the wife. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the wife. Yeah, I just had one come across as we're recording this.
Oh,
I
that's
just looked
funny.
down and I'm like, uh-huh.
Yep.
Here's how it started. This is what I saw at the corner of my eye. My husband needs to work with you, but
Mm.
blank. In other words,
Yeah.
we're pointing the finger like if he could just fix him, if
Yeah.
you could help him, we would be hunky dory. Yeah. So that's again, I get it. I understand. I've been there.
Yeah.
Right. I thought, oh, Well, my mom died when I was just 2 weeks old. So all of my decisions moving forward are, well, I'm cursed,
Yeah.
right? It's just the way it is, and it's somebody else's problem. And I spent decades blaming God and blaming her and blaming my father and blaming so many people. Well, this is just my life, right?
Yeah.
As C3PO once said, right? My lot in life. No, it's not. It's, as you say, intentional decisions,
Yeah.
intentional actions. And it's not until people can come to that sobering realization that they have wounds. In fact, what I point out very boldly and very confidently to these women is if your husband has all of these issues, you have corresponding issues
Ouch.
because like always attracts like.
Yeah. Hmm.
So this is what we refer to as an energetic trauma bond.
Okay.
She has trauma wounds and he has trauma wounds, and that's what's attracting. So the vast majority of couples on the planet, that's what's going on. It's not like-mindedness.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
not, oh, we have so many things in common. We have passion, we have love, we have sex. Oh my gosh, we love to do the same things. The reality is, under most of that is, I had a crappy childhood too.
Hmm.
And we have something to talk about. Now, they don't sit around on the day that they get engaged and say, hey, let's talk about our abusive father. But the energy underneath it all says it's true. And it's a hard pill to swallow. I get, but it's true. You are who you choose who you are.
Hmm.
And that's really, really hard. But it makes sense because energetically, as we know, right, we will attract who we are.
Yep.
We're the five closest people. That whole line. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it's true. We attract who we are. So if we want, and I think I took this line from Irwin. So if Irwin, you ever listen to this, I'm stealing this from you and giving you credit. But I think he says something about this in one of his books is if you want somebody different in your life, you have to become somebody different.
Hmm.
Yeah. If you want a different life, you have to become different, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, when individuals come to me and say and start pointing the finger, I always direct it back to them. So even the folks, the hundreds of thousands of folks who follow us on social media across the world, to our high level clients who come to us, I'm always steering them onto their side of the street.
Yeah.
Their side of the street is where we have to live. But the vast majority of their life, oftentimes, has been on somebody else's side of the street going, what are you doing over there?
Yeah.
Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Right.
Yeah.
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 That's it. So here, this is a question so I was kind of bummed that Ray couldn't be a part of this. So Ray Sebastian's one of my best friends, and he is I mean, his story is kind of crazy because he was born in the Philippines, super third world country, Guam, ended up coming to the United States and with his dad marrying his mom and different things. And then he worked in a children's home for a long time, and now he's a school counselor. But he's also a football coach. He's just this like all American badass football player and accolades and all the stuff. And so it's interesting talking to him because it seems to be that there's this weird balance of me growing up. It was kind of my dad was Wimmer, and I love my dad very much like suck it up, Buttercup. You're in Montana, cowboy up, let's go.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
Which I think there's some good things that come with that because the opposite side of that, I guess you can just be a soft marshmallow and not do anything and, just kind of like blame the world. But when I first got introduced to, trauma and I'm like, okay, I don't really have trauma, but then realized like, yeah, we all have trauma, right? We all have stuff that we have to work on, work through, name it and get it out. But I think I see also, especially as Ray and I talk, that seems to be a crutch for people too, meaning they never resolve anything. They just are focused on the trauma so much that it becomes almost like a blinder, and then it's like nothing else. But now they seem to have therapeutic language around it, if that makes sense, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, this is my trauma, so therefore, and now that they can name it, it's like, yeah, but you're not healing that. And so I guess,
Exactly.
well, how do you speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's an enormous amount of awareness as we define it, right? You read all the books, you have all the language, you listen to the podcasts, and you go on a weekend retreat, you go to a couple of programs, you do whatever the case may be. And so we have a lot of language around it. And far too often, though, the help out there is simply diagnostic. It's simply labeling. It's simply pathology. It's simply diagnosing.
Yeah.
The five love languages, attachment theory, Myers-Briggs,
Right. Right.
strength finders. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Every personality test. All of those are fantastic ways to identify what's, quote, wrong with you. But very seldom are we identifying the pathway to truly heal.
Hmm.
So we can label something all day long. If you're anxious attached, well, you never ever want to marry somebody who's dismissive avoidant, for example, right? No, that all that does is label what we're doing, right? We say, well, he has narcissistic personality disorder. No, he doesn't. He has childhood wounding, right? We also believe, Jason, in our coaching practice that no one is disordered. No one has OCD. No one has MPD. No one has PTSD.
ADHD. Yeah.
There are no D's. No one's disordered. No one has a disease. I could go on and on,
Yeah.
right? Everything that happens with us and internally and then expresses externally is because of unresolved childhood trauma. And we can trace it back every single time.
Hmm.
So when somebody comes to and say, well, I have ADHD, I've had so many, interestingly enough, I've had so many men, not women. If you look at the statistics, how many men are diagnosed with ADHD,
Oh,
attention deficit
I've
hyperactivity
had
disorder? Yeah.
5 to 1. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a misdiagnosis. It should never be done.
Sure.
They don't have attention deficit. They have childhood wounding that says if I don't dissociate, I will be further unsafe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then if I don't become hyperactive on the other side of the pendulum swing,
Yeah.
then I will be unsafe.
Hmm.
So our bodies go into behavioral modifications, into triggering to keep us safe from wounds that have yet to be healed from childhood.
Yeah.
So if we are a man who erupts and says, get over it, butter up, what do we call it?
Suck it, buttercup.
Suck it up, buttercup, right? Get over it, be a man, boys don't cry. That's all trauma.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
That's all trauma. And on the other side is it's okay, baby. It's okay. I'll take care of you. Like that's coddling, that's spoiling, that's on the other side,
Yeah.
right? All of it is trauma, right? And we're engaged with it and it swings us in one of two directions or possibly in the middle. Either way, we react to life out of a behavioral modification that we had to learn to keep ourselves safe from when things were really serious when we were little boys and little girls.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point, because you were talking about, and then what is the resolution look like? So I guess for people that have never
Yeah.
been on this path, because I've got family that I love that essentially they would throw it all out and be like, it's all crap, mental health, the thing, blah, 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 blah. Because I think that people see, like I was saying, like, I think people see the people like, oh, well, I have, they'll label that, like you said, that, well, I have ADHD. It's like, so, like Ray, he had this, kid, and it's like, well, I've got ADHD. He's like, and what's that got to do with your math? I'm not going to give this as a crutch for you.
Right.
You need to be better. Right. And you can, so yeah, how does that, what does resolution look like? We're talking about like unresolved trauma. What does resolved trauma look like? And how do you know that people are on the path, I guess?
Yeah. That's a great question. So if we experience triggering behaviors, hyperactivity, hyperproductivity, depression, anxiety, attachment to achievement, procrastination, perfectionism, I could go on and on and on. All of these are behavioral modifications that we label, by the way, if we have time to get into this, we label as either a wounded masculine understanding or a wounded feminine understanding. I just opened the can of worms there and we may
get there. Well, I'd love to go there.
We may get there. But we can generalize it this way. Any more passive behavior. So if we run away from conflict, if we're fearful of rejection, if we tend to hide during confrontation, that's all what we refer to as wounding in the feminine, wounded feminine energy, not female. It's not related to gender.
Okay.
Every man and every man and every woman on the planet carries both masculine and feminine energy. It gets wounded in childhood because of childhood trauma. So what happens in childhood is we experience through the lens of our caregivers something that's disruptive emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually. It's something that's not supposed to happen. I'll give an example. When I was 5 years old, Jason, I fell off my bike, skinned my knee, which welcome to life, right? Every kid probably does that at some point. I was 5 years old, fell off my bike right at the bottom of our driveway. I looked down at my right knee and it's bleeding profusely. Now, that's probably the first time that I ever saw my own blood or can recall. So I'm freaking out pretty well. 5-year-old boy, I start hollering. I start screaming, crying. My dad hears me. He's working in the garage right up the hill. And he strolls down. That's important. Stands over me. That's an important detail. Looks down at me. That's an important detail. And says to me, you're fine. You're okay. Rub some dirt in it. Boys don't cry. At that moment, trauma entered my nervous system because this is what it said. Don't show emotion. Don't emotionally express or someone will reject you. And forevermore, that trauma was in my nervous system until I begin the healing process, which I'll get to in just a moment. That happens every single day. Okay. Now, why did my father react that way? He was unable to process emotions that were unfamiliar to him. So he
Wow.
wasn't
That's
he
deep.
wasn't being a strong guy. He wasn't trying to toughen me up. He did not have the ability to understand emotion.
Hmm.
Why? Because he never understood it when he was a kid. And those trauma wounds were resonating inside of his nervous system for decades. And so, under that understanding, I had to adapt.
Right.
And I learned very quickly that if I cry, someone will reject me. Interesting.
Hmm.
So I learned not to
Cry.
cry.
Interesting.
Exactly. To
Hmm.
hold in emotion that's unequivocally, without question, unhealthy. We are humans and we are supposed to express. Even men are supposed to express our emotions. That's a whole nother conversation
Yeah.
because I have a whole teaching, whole understanding of how men express. It's very different than women, by the way. Now, let me look at the other side. If that wouldn't have been trauma, what would that have looked like? I'll tell you. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I fall off my bike. I see my blood. My father comes down, rushes down, gets down on one knee, looks directly in my eyes, kindly, gently, compassionately, and says, "Oh, buddy, holy cow. Wow, that looks like so much pain." I have done that. I did that so many times when I was a kid. I tell you what, let's go inside. I'll get you cleaned up and you'll be back on your bike in no time. Exactly.
Yeah.
That would have never entered my nervous system as trauma.
Hmm.
It's not what happens to you. It's not the fall and it's not the blood. Event is not trauma. Trauma is not an event.
Hmm. Okay.
It's what wasn't allowed to be processed and released from the body.
Hmm.
So it stayed inside and said, nope, don't tear, don't
Yeah.
cry, don't show emotion. And so forever then, I had to cope. I had to create a behavioral modification that took away from who David was. So much of this process, so much what we help men and women do is begin to find their identity.
Hmm.
Because in that moment, Jason, mine was taken
Yeah. Interesting.
because I lost who I was. I had to become what who wanted,
Yeah.
my
Dad.
dad, for
Yeah.
him to feel safe.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what do we do in adulthood? If I recognize, for example, as an adult, if I recognize somebody crying and I shame them, I repeat the pattern,
Hmm.
right? Is what I learned, right? That's a trigger. I feel uncomfortable. And so I shame somebody. I call them a you know what,
Yeah.
right? That's a trigger. And so every time that happens, I help a client connect that to an original wound. In this case, it would be in 1977 on that bike
Yeah.
and say, oh, what? Oh, when did you ever feel shame for shedding tears? And I help them begin to connect to that little boy and begin a relationship with that little boy because that little boy from our approach and understanding is still there,
Hmm. Sure.
still suffering, still crying, and not allowed to feel.
Yep.
When we begin a relationship, literally speaking, to that wounded part of us, we build a relationship, we build rapport,
Yeah.
we validate him, we see him, we understand him,
Hmm.
we in many ways cry with him
Yeah.
and allow him to know that it's okay to express that. Over time, building that relationship in which I help the client do, that little boy begins to trust again and say, oh, you mean it's not 1977? No, it's not. It's 2025.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we've been suffering here for 50 years. And I help them begin to release what was once trapped decades before.
Hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's good. I was thinking about the the own work, my own work that I started doing
Mm-hmm.
20, yeah, almost 10 years ago. And just that idea. So the idea that the my therapist was walking through was essentially the idea that whenever that trauma enters, it's that's where you are at emotionally. So you could be 50, 70 years old, but you're still 6 or
Mm-hmm.
7 or 5, right?
Yeah.
Years old. And
Yeah.
so if you're emotionally a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, it's amazing because as I think about that and I do things today as I've been, continually
Mm-hmm.
working on myself, I'm
Sure.
like, why did I act like that? I was like, oh, because I'm acting like I'm 13.
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
Instead of like, oh, okay, that's so now I need to help grow that part up too.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yep. Yeah. And so what we've come to understand is that there is two delineations. There's the wounded parts of you, which are not you. So you have
yeah,
Jason,
okay,
and then you have Jason's wounded parts.
yeah,
What's happened is the wounded parts are driving the bus and have so for decades, for your entire life, driven by triggers,
Yeah.
driven by these behavioral modifications. But there's a true Jason inside of there. And that's who's building a relationship with the
Mm.
5-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 13-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So you have a calm, curious, consistent, confident you. And that's how we're tapping into the true you, the one that understands and that can communicate with that wounded part of you.
Yeah.
It says, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to release. It's okay to
Mm.
be. It's okay to feel. It's okay to all the things that I was told were not okay.
Yeah.
And so, and when that happens, that part begins to soothe.
Mm.
That part of us begins to
Yeah.
relax. That part of us is no longer inflamed and pissed, angry, resentful, bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, begins to change. And that part begins to feel safe. And that's the reality. The reason why we're triggered is because that part doesn't feel safe and it will do whatever it can to get our attention.
Mm.
That's why it comes out as an adult as a trigger. That's why we have somatic symptoms. Everything from sweaty palms, elevated heart rate, sciatica, whatever the somatic symptom is.
Yeah.
Cancer, chronic
Mm.
back pain, migraines, you name it.
Yeah.
Right? That's how your body, speaking, we were talking about body keeps the score, Bessel's landmark work.
Yeah.
That's true because our body is always trying to get our attention. The body keeps the score. The body is always communicating to us. As my beautiful wife says, I wish my body spoke English. But oftentimes it doesn't. It comes through as a common cold. It
Yeah.
comes through as a sinus headache. It comes through as lower back pain. It comes through as joint pain. It's all trying to get our attention to an unmet need, an unknown or unprocessed wound from childhood
Ah,
every single time.
interesting.
Every single.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to open that can of worms that you started talking
Yeah.
about masculine and feminine energy,
Uh-huh.
because I don't have a whole lot of, like we were talking about Bessel's book before, but it was because I had read that, probably 9 years ago, and I had just seen it for the first time in an airport, and I saw some lady have it on the plane probably 2 trips ago, and I was going to San Diego or somewhere. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like it seems it's like coming into the mainstream psyche now for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. But this idea of the masculine feminine energy is still uniquely not that well known. So if we're talking about trauma in masculine and feminine, I'm really curious. Obviously, I think I learned just from you watching Instagram, so
Yes, a
but
lot of people do,
a
Jason.
lot of
A
people
lot of
do,
people
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Uh, but I guess in that, so if we go back to that story of your 5,
Yep.
do you not classify maybe, but is it a masculine, feminine trauma, or is it how does that show up?
Mhm.
And what is maybe the inverse of that if it is a masculine or feminine?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the reason why we incorporate masculine and feminine energy, one, it's timeless, one, it's ancient, one, it's true. And
Yeah,
it's evident within every human, right? So this idea of energy is everywhere, right? If we don't have energy, we don't have magnetism. We
sure.
don't have magnets. And I love playing with magnets even now. As a kid, I love playing with magnets, right? So we can understand that energy is present. The North and South Pole, it keeps us on the planet, right? Like gravity keeps us here. So there's an energy that is carried in every soul, and we identify it as either masculine or feminine. Men are inherently and instinctively carrying more masculine energy, or we should be.
Yeah.
Women, on the other hand, are carrying more feminine energy. This is from the jump. This is from creation, right? This isn't something we learn. It's something we are.
Yeah.
So what happens, I'll go back to the skin knee. I'll go back to the fall, the bike fall. So what happened in that moment was my father was living in his wounded masculine energy. Masculine energy is more aggressive, is more controlling,
Hmm.
is more upfront, leadership, provision, protection. A wounded masculine is hyper aggressive,
Ah,
shaming, over controlling, overbearing, intolerant, perfectionism, attached to achievement, jealousy, envy. All of these are elements of wounded masculine energy.
hmm.
So think of it in these terms. Anyone that is overly aggressive, that's wounded masculine. Oftentimes, the last 15 years or so, it's called toxic masculinity. It's not toxic masculinity, it's wounding associated with trauma.
Okay.
So my dad was operating in his wounded masculine energy. He was aggressive, he was dominating, he was dismissive, all aggressive behaviors.
Yeah.
That put me in a wounded feminine energy where I had to collapse on myself,
Hmm.
passive. So a wounded feminine energy is collapsing. It's silencing your voice. It's being reluctant to speak up. It's people pleasing. It's codependency. It's never mind. It's over apologizing. Right.
Hmm.
So in that moment, yeah, in that moment, I had to succumb because I had to, right? I didn't
Well,
think I
yeah,
could probably go get my own apartment at 5.
sure.
Um, so that's the whole point is boys and girls don't have a choice. That's why trauma, here's a landmark. Here's another grenade I'm going to throw in the room. Trauma only happens in childhood. You cannot be traumatized as an adult. That's a myth.
Hmm.
What you experience in adulthood is an echo. So you talk about making intentional decisions, right? Intentional action. What happens in childhood is when that trauma enters the nervous system and isn't processed, it then lends you into that either that wounded masculine or wounded feminine energy to make decisions out of your wounding forever. So you make decisions, poor decisions, and that leads to what do you call it? An accidental outcome.
Yeah.
How this is all connected, right? And then you wonder why you continue to make the same relationship patterns, why you can't get your finances intact, why you continue to not be the greatest parent, why you continue to have anxiety, resentment, bitterness, depression, etc. Well, it all
Yeah.
stems from
Interesting.
those childhood wounds. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what happens in childhood is those wounds take our masculine energy and flip it.
Okay.
And either we become more wounded feminine or wounded masculine, depending on what the trauma is. And so a wounded masculine man is over controlling, overbearing, dismisses, he's hardened, he's stubborn, he's reluctant, he's
Hmm.
stuck in his ways. Yeah. Uh-huh. Why? Because he was either overly controlled and he's rebelling, right? Or he was overly coddled and he's rebelling into that and saying, I'm not going to be coddled. I'm not going to be spoiled. I'm going to be a man.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and on the women's side, a woman will enter into her wounded masculine energy as a little girl because she doesn't feel safe, secure, protected, seen, understood, cherished, and honored as a girl. She has to grow up too soon. She has to take care of the emotional capacity of her mother and father, perhaps,
Yeah.
or younger siblings. We see this intensely in eldest daughters,
Yeah.
where they are given too much responsibility too soon.
Yep.
And that leaves an indelible mark on their nervous system that they have to take care of the world. And they become over controlling, overbearing, over everything,
Yeah.
overly tired, exhausted, burned out. Yes. And they will always will attract a man in his wounded feminine. That is what we refer to
Interesting.
as the inverted marriage dynamic. That's what we specialize in is men who are more passive and women who are more overbearing and over controlling, and they will always find each other. And so
Interesting.
yeah. And all those wounds, if somebody's in a wounded masculine energy state, it's because they feel like they have to control
Hmm.
everyone and everything around them. Because if they don't, their nervous system, no joke, literally thinks they won't survive the day.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our nervous system has one job, Jason, one, and that's to keep us alive. And it does a pretty good job, right?
Yeah.
When you consider everything that's happened in the history of mankind, it's amazing that we're still here.
Yeah.
God bless, right? It's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that's gone on. Our nervous system is incredibly powerful and it keeps us safe, but it's myopic, meaning it only sees one thing to keep you
Sure.
alive. It doesn't see that the behavior
It's not
maybe
helping.
your
Yeah.
wife doesn't want. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's doing whatever it can to keep you safe. So
Yeah.
if a man is overly reluctant and passive, and his wife is like, I need you to step up. I have so much decision fatigue. Why can't you lead this family the way I need you to lead them? And
Yeah.
the man is like, because he's
Yeah.
terrified. Actually, he's terrified of making decisions because his decisions were dismissed when he was a little boy.
Ah,
And so making decisions to his nervous system is
unsafe.
dangerous,
Yeah.
unsafe.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So one thing that you said that I want to push back a little bit, just because
Sure.
I'm curious about it, because you've
Hmm.
thought about this more than I have. When you said that all wounding or all trauma happens in childhood, and I was thinking about friends of mine that went, I got a lot of friends in the military,
Sure.
and I don't know how, and so I'm trying to like associate that to maybe it's just like acute trauma. You see friends die in front of you in warfare, right? Like
Sure.
crazy
Yep.
stuff that happens.
Yep.
Yeah, where like how does that, or is that a different thing entirely?
Yeah. So I've worked with active military, retired military, wives of military. And so working in this space, what I can trace every single time is that what led them to choose the military
Hmm.
was trauma.
Interesting.
What led them to choose to be a first responder? Trauma.
Yeah.
What led them to go into law enforcement? Trauma. Yeah. Because they felt like, uh-oh, I need to save, fix, I need to have protection on my hip in the form of a firearm,
Hmm.
mm-hmm,
Sure.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so their childhood trauma led them to choose the military, that led them overseas, that led them into a combat unit.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Of course, they experience traumatic events, but the original root cause is not when they saw their buddy die.
Hmm.
We have to get to the root, which happened when he was 5,
Yeah.
when he realized, wait, I need to save other people because no one's coming to save me.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, things that, as Arsenio Hall once said, things that make you go, hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fun. What
Mm-hmm.
so I'm curious now, I guess on the flip side, have there been um I guess what is like one of the most difficult cases, if you will? Obviously not giving names, but somebody that you've worked with that you're like, something is up here. And what did, if the root was childhood trauma, there was obviously lots of layers to get to that, or maybe you never got to that. Because do people like start engaging with you and then they're like, well, this is too much, and then just pull the ripcord and bail out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our program consists of 6-month increments. So we work
Okay.
with clients no less than 6 months. And so there is probably, perhaps, obviously, right, different layers of resistance. They have wounded parts that are incredibly embedded. I always
Yeah.
refer to it like, you ever had a tick that was embedded?
Yeah, I have.
Right? You're like, and man, that thing is deep, and I don't think he's getting out. Yeah,
Yeah.
to where those parts are really running the show, and those wounded parts have been running their show for decades.
Mm.
And so they're literally living from their wounds 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And so it can be incredibly obtrusive, right, to find the self that's in their true self.
Yeah.
Because they have been so inundated with the wound that wants to keep all of those masks on,
Yeah.
right? I've said this so many times. I have family members, I have, old friends, et cetera, that I'm realizing after I'm doing this work and helping so many people, that I've really never known or seen them. All
Mm.
I've seen is their masks.
Wow.
All I've seen is their parts. All I've seen is the wounded parts of them, the children, right? The
Yeah.
wounded parts of them that have to put a mask on just to get through the day. It's very much like people claim addiction, right? I just have to get a drink to get through the day. Well, this part has to come forward and just protect myself. So I'm in a defensive posture, or I'm in a, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay, all right. Or they're always cracking jokes
Yeah.
to diffuse the situation, or they're incredibly shy or introverted. And by the way, nobody's introverted and nobody's extroverted. Those are wounds. Right? So be like, well, I'm an introvert. No, you're not. You're not an introvert, right? You have wounds that are keeping you from engaging.
Yeah.
And so for you to be quote shy is helping you survive, right? It's
Yes.
like, so all of that is masked. So of course there are clients that come to me and are so incredibly entrenched that they have masks upon masks upon masks. What I will say is we take an incredible healthy pride in allowing them to feel safe and secure. And
Mm.
in some ways, I mean, I've been told so many times, I'm very honored and blessed to be for people to say this is I'm the safest person they've ever met.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
here they are in their 50s or 60s, right? And many, many women actually who's like, I think you're the only man I've ever been able to trust,
Wow.
right? Because they have such embedded and entrenched wounds from masculine energy, primarily their father, grandfather, uncle, coach,
Yeah.
cousin, whatever it may be, that they were never able to trust anyone masculine. They were never feeling safe, protected, provided for.
Yeah.
And so here they are, and they don't trust anybody,
Mm.
right? They don't trust anybody to let down the guard, let down the mask, and allow them to be, quite frankly, seen, heard, understood, and cherished. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's the people will bring this idea of small t, big T trauma,
Yeah.
right? Have you heard this? Right. And so we do not subscribe to that because we believe that our nervous system experiences trauma all on the same level.
Mm.
So believe it or not, our nervous system receives something as serious and something as horrible as rape as the same as falling down off your bike.
Mm.
It's still trauma. Your nervous system has been interrupted. You have been emotionally or physically hurt. And all it knows is shut down or spike up, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so everybody carries the same level of trauma. So everybody says it's kind of like comparing scars. It's like, well, my childhood was much worse. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was. It's not dismissing. It's not dishonoring.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, it's not disregarding. It's simply saying, you know what? You have wounds. I have wounds. We all have wounds. Let's get on that trauma healing train and go together.
Yeah.
We can do that.
What have you seen? This is an interesting question because me and my wife were talking about this, and I think Ray and I were talking about this as well. That so this actually came from a friend of mine, and we were talking one day. We were executives at this company, and we were having a hard time with this middle manager. He comes to me, he's like, wait a minute. He's like, what's the hardest thing you've ever done? I was like, what? Well, like, what do you mean? Like physically, spiritually, emotionally? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, right.
And so we just started talking and swapping stories. And what we realized is that this middle manager we were having a hard time with, the most difficult thing physically, whatever that he had gone through, that we could see was he played on a basketball team when he was in high school. It's like, yeah, there's a little bit of discipline and things that come from
Sure.
that. But I think that it's the same way. Like when I hire and interview athletes and people that I want to work for me, I love hiring athletes because they've had to go through it. Does that make sense? Meaning that, if I put the trauma thing aside and I just think of like people that, okay, I'm at this obstacle, I've got this hard thing, and now I have to push through that hard thing. Is that true? Because me and my wife were just talking about this because we were talking about why is it that we have gone through shit, we've gone through the storm, and why do we? And it's not just one. We've had all these things. So why is it that we decide to keep getting up and keep moving again? Why is it keep getting up and moving again? Have you found that as well? Is there a type of person or life experience that allows for people to say, I don't want to be here and I want to move forward? And what is that activates inside people?
That's
in your experience.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, I don't have a definitive answer in that.
Okay.
Right. All I know is that a healthy masculine energy is resiliency.
Interesting. Okay.
Is okay, here's an obstacle, and I'm not able not to push through it, but to actually see it. This is important.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Right? I see
one.
what's in front of me rather than, right? And run the other way or run around it. Right? Running around it is not conquering, right? Yeah. We have to face it and we have to understand it. That's the whole premise of our healing approach is we are actually going to face the wound from when we were a kid rather than Band-Aid it. Right? Rather than pushing through, rather than getting over it, rather than fixing it. There's no fixing. There's no getting over. We have to face it. We had doubled down. You talk about the most courageous thing you can ever do. It's the most powerful thing a man will ever do is not make more money or be more popular or climb a mountain, right? It's a mountain of, where did that pain come from? Yeah. Right. That pain came from because, as a very bold statement that I make consistently, especially when I'm working with the men is a man is fully understood, judged, whatever you want to call it, by witnessing the smile on his wife's face. Period. Yeah. End of story. And I'm not talking about buying her more jewelry so she has a smile on her face. Right. I'm talking about, is your wife at peace? Yeah. More often than not. Yeah. So oftentimes we will leverage other extenuating circumstances, external forces, making money, being popular, climbing the ladder, having more in our 401k, whatever the case is, right? And say, this is going to fix everything, right? No, actually, the sign of a man is a man that, first of all, faces his wounds, right? And begins to heal them. That makes him into the man that can provide an environment where his wife, can feel safe. Now, it's important that I just said that she can feel safe. It's her responsibility. Back to extreme ownership. Right. It's her responsibility to feel safe inside of her own body. Yes. I often hear this from so many influencers out there in the healing space in feminine and masculine energy that a man is supposed to put his wife in her feminine. That is unequivocally untrue. Nope. It's her responsibility to heal her wounds that have had her outside of her healthy feminine. Yeah. Now, can she feel more safe when he's healing and providing an environment that's safe and secure and protective? Sure. Of course, without question. Yeah. Yes. But I will tell you, several men that I'm currently working with, and this goes for the history of the practice, where I am working with them, which is pretty extraordinary, by the way, about 60, 50, last time I looked at the numbers, 58% of the men that I work with one-on-one, or 50%, 58% of the individuals I work with one-on-one are men,
Oh,
which
okay.
is extraordinary when you think about this work. So
Yeah.
I'm not teaching them how to build a machine.
Right.
Right? I'm not teaching them how to make their lawn greener, right? No, I am
Yeah.
helping men heal childhood trauma. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's extraordinary. And every single time, if I'm working with him, but not his wife,
Yeah.
every time, this is what I tell him. You could be the most perfect man. I could teach you and educate you and help you heal all of those childhood wounds, and your wife will still reject you. Why? Because of her wounds.
Yeah.
You cannot heal, fix, mend, or save your wife. You can't. It's impossible. Right. And believe me, I hear it all the time. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, David, I'm doing all this work and she's still nagging me. I know. I know. So
Yeah.
what's your side of
Oh,
the
yeah.
street? Yeah, what are you still going to own? Right?
Right.
What are we still needing to work on? I know it's hard because you want to do this, you want to look over there and go, "Uh-oh, she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing." Right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
suddenly we're back in third grade looking off of someone's paper.
Yeah.
Right? Like, well, they're not doing it, teacher. He started it. How childish, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's a wounded part of us that's childlike.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess if I go one layer deeper,
Mm-hmm.
because you have kids, I have kids. How do we help not transfer trauma? I mean, I think that's one thing that me and my
Sure.
wife talk about as well. I think I'm more aware of it, I guess. And it was funny. This is interesting when I don't know if I told you this, maybe months past, but when I was in the UK visiting my parents a few months ago, and my dad, we were there for like a week, maybe less than a week. And the day we're gonna leave, he looks at me, he says, "I don't think I could do it." I said, "Do what?" He said, "I don't think I could parent like that. You have got way more patience than I do." I kind of laughed. I said, "Well, it's kind of an experiment. I guess we'll find out, in 20 years how this actually goes." But being like, I think I'm just more aware of it, right? And
Sure.
I don't think that
Yep.
he was, ever.
Yep.
But what is, yeah, I guess how does that look, and how do you coach that in young men and in young women, right?
Mhm.
As kids.
Yeah. Yeah. A standard statement I make, Jason, is the greatest gift you will ever give your children is a healing you.
Hmm.
Right. So, and as you know, as a parent, as I know, as all the parents that are listening, they're watching more than they're listening.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
boy, man, I wish you'd listen, kid. But they're observing
Yeah.
and they're much smarter than we give them credit for. They see things far earlier than we ever think they do. They hear, but they feel from the jump, from
Yeah.
birth. They feel it. So the greatest gift is you're working on your wounds and they
Mm.
see it and you're teaching from that healing space. You are owning when you don't parent well and you
Right.
say, you know what, buddy?
Hmm.
Wow, I did not do that well. So thank you for your patience. I'm working on that. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine if we heard that all the time
Yeah. It's
from
fair.
our spouse, from other people in our business. Can you imagine? You know what?
Yeah.
I didn't do this well. I'm taking ownership of that. Know that this is what I'm doing. I'm working on this, and this, and I'm committed to be better the next time.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you
Yeah.
imagine our kids hearing that?
Yeah.
Taking ownership. Well, goodness gracious, they're going to start taking ownership. Now, of course, they're kids. They get it. They're kids.
Yeah.
Patience, right, is not spoiling, as you know, right? Patience, it is a virtue, but patience is part of the healing process. Is able to breathe, take a breath, take a beat, and say, why is my child acting this way?
Hmm.
Rather than they're just being an idiot again.
Okay.
No, even as children, there are reasons. They have parts too already. They have wounded parts that they're activating from, right? Because they're looking for independence. They're
Yeah.
looking for autonomy. They're looking for understanding because maybe they've been isolated, abandoned, dismissed, ignored at some
Hmm.
point, right? And they're already reacting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's our responsibility as parents to lead, is to lead them and fully understand, you know what? They're operating in this particular energy. They have this type of attitude today. Why is that?
Yeah.
No one behaves out of nothing. No one just wakes up and starts making poor decisions.
Yeah.
It
Right.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's why I can honestly say from our perspective, there are no evil people. There are people who have wounds.
Yeah.
And some of them operate full time out of those wounds. And
Mm.
it can feel like that they have no hope, that you
Yeah.
cannot save them. Well, no, you can't anyway. That's their responsibility to save themselves. Right. But if we look at our children, mm-hmm, and see, the spark, there's something there. Wow. They don't want to be throwing a fit. Well, of course they don't. But if it's the only way that they're going to get attention, boy, what does that sound like? A
Sure.
40-year-old throwing a fit
Yeah.
and acting like a child, no different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine if we looked at our spouse. Imagine all the husbands that are listening. If you looked at your wife when she's having a hard day, when she's emotionally melting down, when she's nagging at you, when she's overly intolerant, when she's exasperated, maybe she's cursing or throwing something or just fed up with life. What if you looked at her and saw the wounded little girl in the corner crying?
Mm.
Because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So it looks like a grown woman throwing a fit, and you just want to defend yourself or walk out the room and jump in your truck.
Yeah.
But the reality is what she wants and needs. She simply needs to be seen. She
Mm.
simply needs to be heard. She simply needs to be validated. And boy, wow, what a lesson that we can teach if we simply do that with our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to in your practice and the work that you're doing coming into 2026?
Yeah.
We have this
So
conversation. It feels like every couple months.
yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we want to continue to expand awareness, Jason. You know,
Nice.
just like anyone that wants to help and heal the world, we want more and more people to understand that they can heal. That there are so many people out there. The vast majority, I'll just say that the vast majority of people believe that this is just as good as it gets,
Yeah.
and that they're always going to have a mediocre marriage, and they're just waiting for kids to go, right? Or they're just trying to invest in more things, more stuff to help soothe the pain that they know it's there.
Hmm.
And so, you know, we want to continue to reach the masses. So I'm in the middle of my first book writing project. So we're
Yeah.
excited about that, and hopefully we'll have that published in the next 18 months or so.
That's awesome.
And so that's a huge project. We're continuing to grow our team and expand the message and bring more and more people into the fold, and allowing them to see that the wounded parts of them that are acting out, that are triggering them and created unwanted patterns in their relationships, all stem from wounds from so long ago, and that those wounds can simply heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, David, thanks for doing this with me. It's been a long,
Absolutely.
it's been
Thank you
awesome.
for having me.
So